Good evening and welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 18th, 2023. Mayor Anderson, I am not Mayor Anderson. Mayor Anderson could not make the meeting tonight, so I would like to call this order this Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 18th. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cooney. Right. Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Is there a motion to excuse Mayor Anderson?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Decker. Any opposed? Or any in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Mayor Anderson is excused. Are there any communications, Manager Ritzma?
None, Your Honor.
Next is an opportunity for general public comments. Speakers will each have 2 minutes for their comments. We will start with in-person speakers and then go to our call-in speakers. People who want to offer comments via phone should call 888-382-9556 starting now through the end of this public comment period. If there's anyone in the audience wanting to address the City Commission, please come to the podium, sign in, state your name, and indicate whether you live in the city.
Hello, my name is Nehemiah Scudder, and my friends now call me Ace. I'm kind of complaining that there's only one place for public comment, and long ago, before this commission was seated, there were 2 places for public comment. One at the beginning, like this is, and one at the end. However, we're not going to do that now for some reason. I don't know why. And I wish we could revert to having public comments at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, I'm Paul Rakoff. I'm a retired emergency physician. Lived in Winchell neighborhood for the last quarter century, and I just came down to say that I truly appreciate the political courage that it's taken to adjust the traffic patterns in Kalamazoo, which have been ingrained over the last 50 years, and especially the continued focus on safety of the most vulnerable road users and the diverse attempts throughout neighborhoods to communicate with populations in those neighborhoods to find out what they'd really like to have happen, and then the multiple attempts that have been made to bring us a safer, more usable road system for both pedestrians, non-motorists, and motorists, and especially disabled and elderly folks who have a lot more need crossing the street than a 30-second walk sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is John Knowlton. I'm the president of the Kalamazoo Bicycle Club, and I live in Texas Corners. The Bicycle Club has more than 500 individual dues-paying members, and each year we present a Friend of Bicycling Award to a person or entity which has benefited the cycling community during the year. I have good news in that the recipients this year are the City of Kalamazoo Public Services Department and the City of Kalamazoo Community Planning and Economic Development Departments. So during 2023, these 2 departments planned and created the bike lane cycle track on Michigan Avenue through downtown Kalamazoo that will be a game changer for downtown. It immediately creates a much more conducive, safer cycling environment and thereby invites people of all ages to ride their bikes where they would never have considered riding them in the past. In addition to this major improvement in cycling infrastructure, the departments planned and installed bike route signs on many city streets, helping to guide cyclists along the city streets while raising awareness to everyone of the presence of cyclists. Members of both departments have clearly been proactive supporters of creating non-motorized infrastructure and have sought input from the community on many ongoing street design projects that will have a positive effect on urban cycling for years to come. I want to thank the city for all of the experimentation with making streets safer, more human-scaled, and more friendly to business. You're experimenting, and it is the nature of experiments that some will succeed and some will fail. And it is the nature of human beings that we all want things to be better, and at the same time, we don't want anything to change. You may have heard from some people who don't like change, but I want you to keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Joel Mergen. I live on Angling Road in Kalamazoo. That's the north of the highway Angling. I understand you're going to entertain a motion or a proposal to raise water rates again. Is that correct? I want to tell you a short story, hopefully short enough for my 2 minutes. But this summer, my neighborhood experienced some very horrendous water quality. It was sludge coming out of the faucets. We had a number of people that had to get plumbers and have valves replaced. I had to replace the solenoid on my refrigerator. We called the 311 system, all of us, and we did get some responses. I mean, I talked to Brock at the water department. He was very responsive. Responsive meaning that he responded to me and kept in touch with me. But the problem was that they just simply were not flushing the way that they should be, because we could see them come and flush for 10 seconds, and when we called, they said they'd flush for 30 minutes, and we're at the outer end of the leg there, so we get a lot of the sludge. And so it was affecting our appliances, affecting our quality of life. It was literally brown water coming out. We called the 311 system again, as I said, many, many times. What we got was about 4 months later, we finally got them to close gates and do a proper flush, and that cleared out the lines. They've been decent ever since. Now, decent means that I change a 3-month filter every week and a half, approximately. So that's, for us, that's good. What I would really like to do here is talk to you about the fact that we have a 311 system that I can't see. I don't know what the top water department issues are, like the top 3 last year. I don't know any of the actions that anybody's taken to deal with them. And when I call you folks, you don't seem to know that either. So my belief here was this was a problem of following the department's own processes. In other words, doing what they said they would do in the first place. And I see no way of holding.
Yes, sir, your 2 minutes are up. Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Randy Shaw. I live in Portage. I'm now retired, but for 19 years I was a city employee in City Hall, and during that time I rode my bike to City Hall a number of times. I never had any accidents, but I had an awful lot of close calls. So I would just like to encourage you, when you design roads and consider traffic, to factor in the bicycles, because we need all the protection you can give us. Thank you.
Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Miller, and I just wanted to share a personal experience with you. I'm not a bicyclist, but I am a walker, and I am a mother of a disabled daughter who tries to be as independent as possible. The changes that have been made to the Winchell neighborhood are profound. I feel so much safer walking. My daughter can cross the street without her heart beating. I realize it's all experimentation, but the work that you're doing to make our streets safer is commendable. Please keep it up. The changes are profound. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Mayor, City Commissioners, City Manager. My name is Paul Selden. I'm a longtime Kalamazoo area resident. You may know me as the founder of Bike Friendly Kalamazoo. Thanks for allowing me opportunity to support everything the city is doing to improve our traffic patterns and to make our streets safer for all users, including motorists, through the speed reductions and improvements that those patterns and engineering changes are bringing about. I urge you to support your department to the extent that they are doing the absolute best job that they can do of any city that I know to bring Kalamazoo to a level that competes effectively with other cities. You may also know that I'm a lifelong, now retired business owner, and the hat I wear now as I'm speaking to you is to encourage you to continue everything you're doing to make the city competitive on an economic basis, to attract the kind of businesses and tourists and new residents, and to retain those who already live here through the many safety improvements that are being introduced right now in the city. We're going to hear later from your traffic engineer some exciting statistics on the effects that have already taken place that have made for very many improvements in people's lives, including the reduction in crashes, which take a tremendous toll no matter what spectrum you're coming from. So thank you. Keep up the support.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone else in the chambers that wishes to make a comment? Seeing none, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, do you have anyone calling in?
We'll go ahead and check the lines right now. We do not have any calls.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are a couple of presentations. City Manager Ritzma.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor. First of all, I'd like to ask our traffic engineer, Dennis Randolph, to come forward. He has a presentation on right-of-way safety projects update. So, Dennis, the floor is yours.
Good evening. It's nice to be here to talk with you about something that I've been interested, I guess, just about my whole life, but certainly the last 53 years, traffic safety. You know, I got a 311 message Friday that I thought was kind of fit into what I was going to talk about. So a person concerned about how we were timing traffic signals and some no turn on red signs that we have out in the field right now. And they noted that the purpose of a traffic signal was to push as many cars through an intersection as possible. And in all my time as a traffic engineer, I've never heard that particular definition of a traffic signal. Traffic signals are safety devices. They're there to allocate right-of-way so people can go through intersections safely. We like to time them so traffic will get through the intersections reasonably, but safety is the first thing that I'm concerned with when I put a traffic signal in. We have a problem in Kalamazoo with traffic safety. We have a lot of crashes. When we look at other cities in the state of Michigan, and then we've done that using state police crash data, we find that we probably have 300 to 400 more crashes a year than a city with our population and size would expect it to have. I think that's a problem. I tell folks, I've been in a lot of cities and counties over the years. I've never been to, or never had a street like Michigan Avenue, where I had so many cars rolling down the street in crashes. And I had streets with lots of volume and little rural towns. That's a problem. It all points to, I think, speed, and the idea that a lot of folks have is to travel through our city as quickly as possible. And I think in terms of just, again, safety, but also the economic well-being of the city, making the city attractive for all kinds of folks, that speeding through the city isn't one of the visions that we want or have for the city. And what we're trying to do is deal with those problems that prevent us from meeting that goal, that vision for the next century. Okay, I missed the slide. I wanted to talk about a couple of the problems that I see going on and how I'm working to address them through the department, through the resources we have. Stop signs. I've mentioned, and you probably all know, that we're going through the city adding stop signs. Uncontrolled intersections are just crashes waiting to happen. In most communities where I've been, people have always asked for stop signs. And it's one of those things that can be a real contentious point when we argue about it. But the fact is, the rules that I follow as a traffic engineer allow me to put traffic signs, stop signs in where I think there are going to be problems. And we're going through the city bit by bit doing that. And one of the things that's resulting is we're eliminating a lot of yield signs. Frankly, people don't understand what yield signs really mean anymore. I don't think they ever did, actually. But we're trying to eliminate questions and problems that people have. So that's one of the programs what we're doing. Another thing that we're doing, I mentioned already, is we're looking at no turns on red. And you'll see there's a movement across the whole country of people considering the no turn on red signs, especially when there's an emphasis on walking, pedestrians, intersection safety. There are many people who don't remember that the rule for turning on red is you can turn on red after stopping when the traffic clears and when there are no pedestrians. You yield to pedestrians. And too many times you'll all see it, people coming around a corner as quickly as they can after a signal changes. It's a problem, especially when you have pedestrians and bicyclists out in the area. Pedestrians and bicycles always lose when they're hit by a car. So we're trying to deal with that. I think you're going to see more and more. It won't be a blanket thing that we do. But again, where we're looking at potential crashes, potential of people being hurt, we want to do some things around the city to prevent that from happening. You know, another problem, I show this one especially because it seems the last few months more and more instances have come up of people running the center left turns lanes and using them as passing lanes. One of the things you're going to see, using some of the funds in the federal grants that we've received in the past year, the SS4A grant and some high safety improvement program grants that we got from the highway department, is us taking some steps to try to stop people from running center left turn lanes and using them as passing lanes. Again, you not only have improper use of a lane, but you have people speeding in those lanes. And the opportunity for head-on collisions, again, striking pedestrians, really increases in those cases. And what do people save? Because we have intersections and signals fairly densely placed in the city, you may save yourself 5 or 10 seconds at the risk of seriously hurting somebody. One problem I'm sure you're all familiar with, you know about these signs. You put them in before I got here. I think they're a good sign. But how many times do you see people actually stopping at crosswalks for those signs? As you may have noticed, we've been beefing up the signage at those locations, putting bigger pedestrian signs, the lime green ones, which are a really cool color, I think. Putting lighted signing so people can see what's going on. But again, it's disconcerting to me when I come down Michigan Avenue, come up to church, the lights are flashing, and I'm the only one that's stopped there, even after I start blowing my horn and putting my flashers on. Especially when I see people standing, waiting to cross. We shouldn't have that. And for our downtown, that's not the type of atmosphere we want for our downtown central business district street. We want to be able to have it so people are comfortable crossing the streets, going back and forth to patronize the businesses and the other things that are going on downtown. Part of what we've done on Michigan Avenue this year is to try to address that problem. But again, it's an ongoing situation that's been around the city for a long time that we need to continue to deal with. Speed limits. I mentioned speed to start with. Speeds in themselves don't necessarily make crashes. Expressways, you can travel quickly if you want. But when you have cars going at different speeds, some cars going 25 miles an hour, some going 50 miles an hour, then you have crashes. And the fact is, the faster the speeds, the more likely a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or even someone in another car is going to be injured seriously. And one of the metrics we're using to see how well we're doing is by looking not only at fatal crashes, which are extreme situations, but type A crashes, which are the most serious types of injuries that people have. And one of our objectives is to drive not only fatal crashes down, but those type A injuries, which in fact I think are worse because they leave people crippled and a burden for themselves and for the community and a loss of the things that they could do for the community in the future. I think one thing that people forget about speed limits is the speed limit is the limit. It doesn't say if it's 30 miles an hour, you can go 35 miles an hour, or you can go 40 miles an hour, because in past times the police didn't have accurate enough radar guns to measure your speeds. 35 miles an hour is as fast as you can go. 50 miles an hour is as fast as you can go. That's a real problem. When I look at our radar signs all over the city, and we have 14 of those signs, it's a great collection of signs, and I see that 60% of all the drivers passing those signs exceed the speed limit, I think there's a problem. And it goes directly to the number I mentioned at the beginning of 300 or 400 excess crashes a year. That's the result of the speeding that we have. I already talked a bit about pedestrians, but not only vehicle drivers are causing some problems or a concern, but pedestrians and even bicyclists don't always follow the rules of the road. They don't walk on the right side, correct side of the street. Pedestrians notoriously will cross against those particular signs, even though we're beeping them up with vocal cues. We have people crossing. When you have a traffic signal that doesn't have pedestrian signs at it, pedestrians are allowed to cross if the traffic is clear, and usually you see that in more rural areas. But in a city, when you have those particular devices, the law says you only cross when it says walk. So we need some education. And again, what we're hoping through our SS4A grant is to have a campaign, again, to try to tell pedestrians and bicyclists for their help on what the rules of the road are. Not to hound them, not to criticize them, but to make things safer by them acting more safely on our streets. We're going to be doing a lot of these things. Again, we had some nice federal grants that allow us to do that. Over the past, certainly the 3 years that I've been here, but I know it started before then, a couple years, the city has been going through traffic calming. I got an email today from somebody that asked or said, there's an engineer who's saying traffic calming isn't safety. No, traffic calming is safety because it goes to the problem, especially the problem we have here in Kalamazoo of speeds. Traffic calming is intended to slow traffic down. Many of the things you see us doing out on the streets around the city are intended to slow traffic so that, first of all, if somebody does get hit, the chances of them being killed or severely injured is drastically reduced, but also because it is a law, we want people to be able to move around the city and share the streets and not just be vehicle-centric like we have been for the last 50 years, certainly more than that. It happened. So we're doing a number of things, and I think I've put on the slides, and I'm not going to go through each of them. You see them, but we do things like lane reductions and narrowing, specifically to slow traffic down. But what it also does when we eliminate a lane or narrow a lane is it gives us room to do other things, whether it's parking cars or putting in bike facilities, making use of the street space, again, to make it useful for a lot of folks. We're doing things like speed humps. It's been a real good program. If you notice, you get a lot less complaints nowadays than you used to, but I need a speed hump. We're putting a lot of speed humps in, and they do slow people down. And I think, in general, I haven't heard any complaints, and I've been to places where people complained about speed humps. So that's a program that's working well. Is it reducing speeds? Yeah, a bit. A couple miles an hour, just like narrowing a lane will give me 2 or 3 miles an hour reduction in the average speed. You don't get a lot, but if it's a car hitting a person, 2 or 3 miles an hour, or reducing a speed from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, means somebody is going to be able to not be crippled for life. That's the whole objective. The radar speed signs, again, we have a lot of them. Not everybody recognizes them or takes the advice we're trying to give out. Again, we're going to be beefing those up over the next several years with some experiments we use our federal safety money for. Again, just to try to make them more noticeable and for people to understand that they're not there to harass you or to necessarily slow you down. They're there so you understand what the law is. And the speed law is a law that you need to follow. We've been doing, again, speed signs. We tried some play streets. Why would we do that? Again, the whole idea is to try to use some of the right-of-way that we have around the city for more than just cars, to see if it works, to try it out as safely as we can. In general, we're not having problems with the experiments that we're doing out on the streets. We're not having people hurt, injured, certainly not killed. And that's, I think, my objective as a traffic engineer is always to try things to make sure at a minimum I don't make things worse. But at best, I start getting reductions in crashes. You'll see that in a minute. So we try a number of things, roundabouts, curb extensions. We're putting enhanced pavement markings. You probably are seeing the big 30 and 35 mile an hour legends out on the street. We get 2 or 3 miles an hour, again, reduction on average speed. And folks at the Western Michigan University and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration are following our work. We have a case study that the Federal Highway Administration is using Portage in, so folks around the whole country will see what we're doing and the successes we're having in the city. So it's more than a local thing. But I also mention that because I think it's validation for what we're doing. Federal Highway Administration, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the leaders in the field, the folks that we have to comply with in terms of law, see what we're doing as positive steps in the traffic safety field. And they're giving us money. Okay, we've gotten big traffic safety grants. We got $75,000 from NHTSA. They're giving us another $15,000. And we're going to be doing some things with street lighting around the city to brighten intersections. Again, what they're finding and what we found is pedestrians are being hit at intersections at night. And you'll say, well, they should wear light clothes. Well, we can't legislate or tell people what kind of clothes to wear, but we can make the street as safe as possible for them so that when they do go out, they won't be hurt. We're upgrading our signal timings. Again, while I'm not interested in jamming lots of cars through a street as quickly as possible, we're trying to make things efficient. We have a new grant, you'll see it advertised in a few weeks, to hire a consultant to do some signal optimization. That optimization is going to help us as we do our conversion to two-way streets downtown. It'll help the north-south streets, especially, who have suffered because of the emphasis on the one-way traffic on the streets. So again, I'm an old signal timer. I've been doing it a long time. It's important, but you have to balance what's important most, and saving people from death and injury is really what the bottom line is. The one-way to two-way conversions, it's coming. Again, we got some validation from the Federal Highway Administration, Department of Transportation. They gave us some really nice grants to help us do the work, the engineering, and ultimately the construction work that are required. But what are we really going to get out of it? We're going to manage speeds. We're going to manage where drivers are so that there's less chance for them to have crashes. We're going to make downtown streets friendlier for people to be able to cross and to walk along. I've seen it where I've been before. We've already seen it certainly along Park and Westnedge. If you notice, you see a lot more people walking, especially on the area north of Kalamazoo Avenue. As we've narrowed the lanes, as we put buffer lanes in with the bike lanes, there are a lot more people walking. It's because it's a lot more comfortable. That's a big benefit that we'll have. If we want people downtown, then we need to make it comfortable for them, especially with the new event center. We need to make things comfortable for pedestrians because that's what's going to be down here when that center is built. A lot of people walking around that we need to take care of. We have had some good results. Now, unfortunately, in our business, you need 3, maybe more years of results before you can say this is statistically significant. We've been following crashes on a monthly basis, and in the best, I've got a year of data to show me what's happening. So what can a year of data show me? It says, am I going in the right direction? Are we going in the right direction? Again, at minimum, I don't want any increases in crashes for what we do. At best, I would hope we get decreases. And that's what we're finding. And again, we're doing some things with the data so that we can make it accurate. We're leaving out the COVID years. Traffic crashes went kind of crazy during COVID, and we have to filter those out so that we can have some good results. We're doing before and after, and fortunately we have a real nice database, a state police statewide crash database that goes all the way back to 2013. So we have 7 or 8 before years that we can compare as we look at all the things we've been doing. And what have we found? Well, a couple examples. We've done some conversions on 4-lane streets and turned them into 3-lane streets. By doing that, we're able to add some bike lanes. That's great. What's happened? You can see on 3 of the streets that overall, we've got nearly a 40% decrease in crashes on those streets. Again, we're managing speeds, we're managing where people are on the road. That's what's most important. It really works. And I've seen this in other cities for many, many years. Elimination of auxiliary lanes. And this really goes to Park and Westnedge, because when I looked at what was happening on Park and Westnedge streets, again, while we wanted to put bicycle facilities out there and we wanted to try something different, that's why you see those left-hand lanes. But what we really were trying to do, again, was to eliminate some laneage, to slow traffic down. You all know, you've been here a lot longer than me living on these streets. It's a real rat race sometimes, or was, on those streets. And we wanted to slow folks down. We did that by eliminating left turn lanes, some right turn lanes, because all those lanes really tend to do is make it so people can travel faster. As you can see, again, we've gotten a decrease in crashes. And maybe not a lot, but it's certainly a decrease. And as we gather data over the next couple of years, we'll see, I'm sure, even better results by that time. So what should we think about? I'm going to close up because I think part of what the traffic engineer does is sets a vision for the city for the future. We've got a new Randolph coming into the world, probably tomorrow. He tried yesterday, but it didn't work out. He and his brother and sister are going to be in Kalamazoo the next 80 or 85 years into the next century, the 22nd century. And my objective is to make sure that they have safe streets to be on, because that's one of the biggest dangers they will face during their lifetimes, being hurt. And if I can protect them, I'm going to protect a lot of other grandchildren and children in our city. And that's the real bottom line for what we're trying to do. So we want to share our streets. We want to make them safe. There are a lot of ways of doing it. What we're trying is as many different techniques as possible to see what will happen. And when we do try things out, we are open to adjusting them and changing them. I'm not afraid to say, I can do this better. Somebody gave me a better idea. That's key to what we're doing. It's not, I decided this, we need to stick it out. We will look at and evaluate all the steps we're taking. And if we need to tweak them and we need to change them, if we need to try something different, we're more than willing to do that. And I think, again, that helps us get to that vision of the future. So I went on a little longer than I planned, but I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate your many years of wisdom and experience in road safety and bringing it to Kalamazoo. Are there any questions or comments for staff? Commissioner Cooney.
Thanks, Mr. Randall. I have a couple questions. Well, I live in the Millwood area, and I hear all the time, you probably do too, that between Cork Street and Miller Road is like a racetrack. And people ask, why don't we put in some of those electric machines that look at how fast you're driving, or put the speed limit on the street? Is there any thought of doing that in that area?
And which street was it again?
It's on Portage Street.
Portage?
Between Cork
Sure.
and Miller.
I'll tell you, we're certainly open to doing that. And it's really a matter of just putting it in the queue. We are going to be doing some improvements out there this coming summer that geometrically and physically will help the street out. And I think one of the things we've been looking at, I think there's some school crossings down in there that we want to brighten up, put some of our school signs on that have lights on them. So we're going to take a number of steps even this coming construction year. And again, we are more than open, again, subject to budget, and I don't use that as an excuse. We're more than open to looking at that. It's on our radar.
Great. Okay, and then a couple weeks ago, you and Christina and Mr. Latt came to a meeting of merchants on Michigan Avenue. And I'm wondering if you came away with some ideas to respond to what they were presenting that day.
What I've been doing since then, personally, is doing some measurements out on Michigan Avenue. In particular, we heard from the principal of the school down towards Westnedge, and I've been measuring how the traffic flows and acts down there. Now, it was good until last week. I have to stop right now because school is out, at least Western Michigan, which is a big part of the volume. I'll pick up again with a little more review after that, and then I plan on getting back with the principal and some of the other folks out there to tell them what we found. I don't know if I'll have this groundbreaking change that I can come up with, but collected a lot of data already, been sitting out there myself, and so we're looking at it. We will be getting back with folks.
Well, thank you for responding to that.
Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Dennis, for being here. Appreciate the presentation and the update as well. I know from a number of the presentations, I think some that you've been at as well, certainly Commissioner Cooney as well, some people have questioned the validity of just using the Michigan State Police stats. And I just wonder if you could just speak to that a little bit. I mean, maybe we can just dispel some rumors or explain how that gets used. I think there was an example at the presentation that was downtown a couple weeks ago where people had indicated maybe there had been some like rear crashes on West Michigan Avenue, but maybe hadn't been added in the crash statistics for the state.
Mm-hmm. I've been using crash data in Michigan since we started computerizing it, which was about 1977. I think the state police crash system is a very nice system. It allows us to focus in on individual spots or corridors or the city as a whole, which I can do compared, or other cities, which is even nicer. That's where we got the data for the number I told you about. I think, as with all crash data, you have to be careful in what you're doing and making sure that you're always comparing apples with apples. The nice thing about the state police data, again, with that long history from 2013 on up, we're able to specify a location and then within that location break it up by date, which ensures that at least we are comparing apples to apples. I feel real confident. We've compared it also with another source of crashes that we have, and it's part of our RoadSoft system. Again, it's the same crash data. That system is always a year behind. The results are the same when I look at the results, so I'm cross-checking two with each other. I guess that's, I feel real confident about it. I think it's a really nice system. I hold the state police in real high regards, so I think that, again, even if some data were left out, or it takes a while to get in, and it usually takes 3 or 4 days for crashes to get into the system, the fact is, I'm always looking at the same piece of road, regardless of what, and that's what's really important.
And the same measuring tool.
Yes.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think it's helpful for people to hear that so they understand that. So another thing that I hear from people a lot is, I guess, like, how do you respond to people who say this? I don't ever see, I don't see bikers out, so why are we doing this? Or I don't see pedestrians, or I don't see enough to warrant these changes. What would be your response to those individuals who have those sentiments?
Yeah, on the slide I showed at the beginning, it says that we have pedestrian and bicycle crashes every year. So first of all, that tells me that there are people and bikes and pedestrians getting hit, and that isn't the majority of the people, the only people using our system. As part of our grants that we've got, we're going to be having a new system implemented, hopefully during the winter, that will actually give us some nice numbers. Now, they aren't going to be actual counts. They're going to be derived from Bluetooth, that type of modern technology that's out there, that will show us better where bicyclists are and where pedestrians are. We also are fitting up some of our signals with devices that can actually count pedestrians and bicycles, and in particular, they're going to be out on Michigan Avenue. I wanted to be able to use the new technology, so we found money to do that this fall, and that equipment will be going in over the winter so that, again, we'll have a backup to tell us what's happening. But the fact is, for many years, people wouldn't bicycle on Michigan Avenue, for example, or West Niger Park because it was a horrible thing to do. You really did take your life in your hands. We can't just flip a switch and all of a sudden have a lot of folks. But I think there are a lot of folks here who do go on those streets now, and we're going to see increases over the years. And I think that is modern transportation, and we have to deal with it.
I think part of it, as well as if you build it, they will come.
They will come, yes.
And I think that's what we've seen time and time again in similar sized cities or larger. The other thing I actually super glad that Commissioner Cooney brought this up as well, and this was on number 2 on my list of questions I wrote down to ask you tonight, but there's one example that I absolutely love, and it's on the corner of Millam and Lover's Lane, across from both parks. And when you drive on that at night sometime, just take a look there, especially when you're turning from Millam left onto Lover's Lane, and there's above pedestrian walk lights. And it is astonishing how much easier it is to see people who are on both sides of the, and I've brought it up before, but I love that as a tool because it is so much easier to see people, and not even just depending on what color clothing that they're wearing. Sometimes, especially in some of those areas, it's just very dark, especially in some of those areas that are really wooded. But especially being near a school, I think there's a couple examples like I see like in the Vine neighborhood on Southwest Nidge, especially where some of those crosswalks are. I think it'd be tremendous to have those above crosswalk lights there because it is so easy not to see somebody with all the lights around you and the fast traffic moving and everything like that. And so just wanted to lift that up to get your thoughts about changes in that regard, but it sounds like that's in the queue to happen.
Actually, we have our first installation was at Mills and Lake Street. If you go out there, you'll see how bright it is and nice. Now, we leave those on all the time. I think we've been working with the neighborhood who just felt the extra lighting would be good for a lot of reasons. But we have a number of those devices already waiting for the weather to allow us to install them. And as part of the work we're doing with Western Michigan and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, you're going to see this spring a number of locations around the city where we do some experimental lighting that they've provided funds for to brighten up the intersections and highlight the intersections so people can be seen. So if you keep your eyes open on that, especially I think we're going to be out on West Michigan where we have a lot of pedestrian crashes out by where all the student housing is. But there are a lot of places in town that we're looking at, so you'll see that over the next few years. They're really nice.
That's great, all day, every day. I'll be supportive of that. I think that's great. And I think misnomer as well is that I think somehow there's been this narrative created that this is just focused on cyclists, just been focused on non-motorized. And the reality is I think that what we see is that if it's safer for bikes and pedestrians, it's generally speaking safer for motorists too. It's safer for everybody. And I think that's the whole point of like the name Streets for All. And so I think,
as we've looked back at what's happened over the last several years, I think one thing we didn't emphasize enough when we started the work was that it was safety first. And the benefit that we get from making things safer by narrowing streets, slowing traffic down, we could use some of that extra space for other things, bicyclists, pedestrians, to make them safer. So again, we've done an after action report. The city manager led that. And I think that's one of the things it was a miscue on our part. We should have said, the safety first, folks. And so we're catching up a little bit with that.
I think that's smart. I also appreciate you saying that, recognizing when you're doing 100 different projects that we've never done before, we're going to screw some things up once in a while. And I think it's helpful for the public to hear you say that, we're willing to listen and willing to adapt because we're not going to get things right across the board. And even if it works for one community, it might not work here. And I appreciate hearing you say that as well, because the vast majority of the work we're doing is fantastic, and it's doing what you aim to do. Couple of things, a couple areas I was just going to kind of like bring up really quick and note that I wrote down before I came here today is one of them, we had a listening session in the Vine neighborhood. There were a number of parents who came up to us afterwards, you remember this, about at the bottom of the Howard Hill, the crosswalk to the school. And for a while we kind of beefed up that crosswalk and really made that more identifiable to people. But as you know, people abuse the speed there coming down the hill. But I've noticed that it's been a little bit neglected, and even just like the paint lines and the bollards that were there. And I just wonder if that's something that we could look at as well. And just hearing those parents out, I think that's a very warranted concern. And certainly like anytime we're around a school is a big concern. The other one I was going to mention as well, and I'm not saying this because I'm trying to look out for just my family. My kids don't go to Millwood Elementary. I live very close there. But that corner of Portage, Lovers Lane, and Cork is just tremendously frightening. And I feel for a lot of the parents and the kids who have to cross those, and the crossing guards that are charged with keeping the kids and families safe on those intersections. And I think you're well aware too, I think this was after you had started as well, we had a period where there were some parents who came here to write to us and come to the meetings, and parents were actually going out and holding like protest signs, shaming drivers going by. And, to me, it's like anytime it gets to that level or point, it should tell us something that we need to do something. And that is one area that is just kind of uniquely designed, where you have a public school in such a wilderness of traffic, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I just really hope we can make some substantive improvements there for people in those intersections and around that school.
Yeah, we've put those Chevron signs that you see, they're radar controlled, which again was another little trial that we wanted to try to emphasize to drivers. It's funny geometrics, to say the least. We have a couple locations like that where we have two signals stacked up real close, and people making turns don't have a real clear message. One of the big problems is that it's a more expensive problem to deal with. I can't simply put more signs because it doesn't work. So it's a little longer term, but I'm aware of them, yes.
I appreciate that. And then the last one I was just going to share and lift up, I have heard from a number of people that, people complimenting the improvements made on Oakland and Parkview in that area. But particular attention on the area when you're turning right from Parkview onto Oakland at that D&W intersection. Somebody brought up just a really good point. I was going to share those with you really quick because I talked to him on the phone earlier this week. So one of them is that it gets really backed up there. And so what's happening is people are cutting through the D&W parking lot, which then is making it unsafe because all of a sudden you have more people who are trying to peek out through there. The other thing that's happening, these are one of those like unintended consequence things, people are going through the neighborhoods in the side streets more so because they're trying to avoid how backed up that one lane is getting. But the one point that I thought that was a really good point that I didn't think of, and I hadn't heard anybody else mention of, was that school on that corner is out of session.
Yes.
They're at a remote, different location. And what that looks like when you have, hundreds of kids coming and going from school across those intersections, when you get people who are trying to race to get across because they're so backed up there, that's definitely something that we might want to start thinking about now and considering how that could impact kiddos and families before they get back in session, because we won't have the data to analyze based on them being in session, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I'm aware, and next year when school goes back into session there is a concern. One thing I'll note, and a lot of comments are that no turn on red sign is on all the time. Yes, it is. Partly for the problem that I mentioned, but also we need to do some equipment changes out there. We're scheduled to do them during the winter, although I'm always hesitant to say my electricians are going to do something in a snowstorm. But we are going to change the equipment. It'll give us the flexibility to turn those no turn on red signs on and off. And I think that'll help what a lot of people are concerned with out there. We'll put them on when the kids are out there. We'll turn them off other times of the day if it works out. So again, we're not quite done with our construction out there, but like I said, even during this winter, we're going to start adjusting the equipment.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Thank you, Mr. Randolph, first of all, for making our streets safer for everyone here within the community. And I say that as I think about how fast individuals do go on our streets. And there was one day before school, I wait for my daughter. I usually stand outside and watch because there are a lot of individuals not stopping for the buses. And I believe speed has something to do with it. They're not paying attention. Well, this particular day, the bus stopped, everything was up, and an individual came around the corner, of course speeding, couldn't stop in time, and thought they were going to go around the bus. But I jumped out in front of them. And I think about if that had been a child, what could have happened? Because we're not only keeping people that are using our streets safe, we're also helping the individual who's driving that car not to have consequences of hitting someone that is driving. So I thank you for that. And just making the streets safe, as I think it's about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, my daughter had said to me, hey, are we going to go back to that place that you walk around everywhere? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's a place that we go on vacation. We don't use our car. You get out and you walk everywhere. And then about 3 months ago, she brought it up again, and she said to me, as we're in the car driving, she goes, you know what, Mom? I see a lot more people walking on the streets. And she goes, well, isn't that what you wanted? And I'm like, no, that's what you wanted. Remember, as a child growing up, you wanted to be able to walk places and not have to get into a car every time you went somewhere. We gave it about 5 minutes of silence, and she was like, thanks. So I would like to thank you and your team for making the streets safer for our community here.
I wanted to mention one thing about school buses, because I've recently pulled all the school bus crashes that happened in the city since 2013, and I've started analyzing them to see what's going on. I'm also looking at Metro-involved crashes, because you often see drivers doing strange things when a bus stops. And I'm anticipating that I might have to come up, or we want to come up with some type of signing that helps mark bus stops for the Metro system a lot better. But also I want to see what's happening with the school buses, because again, they're full of 30 or 40 or 50 kids, and that's not what we want.
I agree, and I believe there was just an incident where I think it was my son's bus was quite late, so of course I called. Someone was speeding and sideswiped the bus. And you think about the kids that were already on that bus.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Good to go? No. Commissioner Cooney.
You got a wealth of life experience with this. You've been doing this forever. But one of the things that I hear a lot is they make changes in my neighborhood, they make changes on my street, and nobody talked to me about it. So I think we have to do a better job combining your wisdom and experience with the knowledge of the people on the streets.
Yeah, and we, I think, have an excellent relationship with community development, which has the people out there who know the folks in the neighborhoods, and I'm really happy with that relationship. We are working right now on how we're going to be talking with folks more and more, not only about the big jobs, the Michigan Avenue and the two-way conversion, but on our regular improvements. So I've been to a lot of cities and counties that I've worked for. I think we've got some of the best staff to help us, and I think we all have a desire to get out and listen to folks. So you're going to see that amping up. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Just to wrap up, I believe that the awareness you're creating about roads and safety is beginning to take hold, because it's awareness and then education and then growth. We're moving toward the growth in this. I understand why you're doing it, and I'm glad for your presentation, and I hope the word can get out there. Spent a little bit of time in Ann Arbor last weekend. They're a little bit ahead of us in terms of changing the roads, but I actually saw drivers stop for the flashing pedestrian signs. We're very close to having somebody hurt out here on Church Street at West Michigan. So I hope that people can understand that and go a little bit slower, honor the pedestrians. Dennis, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate you. And I think that last question from Commissioner Cooney segues nicely into our next presentation.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. City Manager Ritzema, can we move to the next item?
Yes, we are going to be given a presentation update on Imagine Kalamazoo 2025. And this marks this year 6 of our progress towards our strategic vision. So our Assistant City Manager, Rebecca Kick, and Deputy CPED Director and City Planner, Christina Anderson, will be providing this update. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, City Manager, and hello, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. We're excited, as always, each year to bring you the implementation of Imagine Kalamazoo. Again, we have been so intentional about completing the master plan that we did 6 years ago with the community. And when you go out and you talk to that many people and you've spent this much money on things, you want to see a plan implemented. And so each year we come to you and we give you the highlights. And we let you know what we were able to complete and what's ongoing and what's in store for 2024 and in the future. So first, I want to remind you that we've had 136 actions is what was started with the plan, and our 8 strategic goals, of course, environmental responsibility and community or complete neighborhoods. We're going to walk through each one of those, and we're going to frame the projects with those strategic goals. And, you know, we're coming up on the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 process, which is really going to kick off next year, and we'll be excited to talk to you about that. But with 87% of our goals complete, this is just incredible. Really, you know, kudos to every single department that has been involved in this work. Again, being so intentional about what we're able to complete, all of our projects and programs. You'll see that we have some that are ongoing, with the affordable housing work that we've been doing, the traffic calming that you just heard about from the traffic engineer, tree planting. Many of our programs that started, we've continued to do year after year within the budget. They've been so successful. And again, there are some projects you don't just one hit, you know, they're not one hit wonders. They're ones that have become part of the core work that we do in many of our neighborhoods now. And with just a few projects that aren't started, and we'll be certainly talking to you about those on January 2nd when we come for the final budget hearing, because you've all heard about the projects that we're working on in 2024, and many of those are those final projects that are on this list. Next slide. You want to start with this one? Yeah, this one's so you.
Good evening, Commissioners. As in years past, we're going to talk about what has been achieved by grouping them into the categories of our strategic vision goals. So complete neighborhoods is first, and as a reminder, complete neighborhoods are those residential areas that support the full range of people's daily needs. So that's everything from housing to meeting daily needs, commercial, you know, being able to get that light bulb or that milk, or the ability to have recreation within a short walking distance. That's complete neighborhood. So we should say that there's a lot of things on each of the slides, and I know that all the commissioners have a copy of this in front of you. We're just going to highlight a couple. If you have questions on any of the projects and want a deeper dive, let us know, and we will connect you with the staff member who led that project, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be the best to give you all of the details. Okay, so under complete neighborhoods, again, this ranges on a couple of things, and I talked about a couple of these when I was describing what a complete neighborhoods is. lots of housing in this category. So thinking about 25 homes were brought up to code this year, that we had 0 tax foreclosures for owner-occupied homes. 64 new senior housing units that were supported by the city as well as the state and other sources are under construction right now on Rose Street and will be available in the coming years. We updated the commercial zoning, the zoning code as it relates to commercial uses, really thinking about where those commercial uses exist within our neighborhoods to make sure that we are supporting it in a thoughtful way that's spread out through all neighborhoods so all residents have access to those daily needs and opportunities for jobs. And of course, this was year 2 of our Kalamazoo Roots project, which was a partnership to provide residents with the knowledge, skills, and resources to build some fresh, healthy foods. And I love this picture. We showed it last year too because there's it's awfully adorable, right? So the opportunity to grow a number of own fruits and vegetables at home. This program is going to continue in future years through a partnership with KVCC. So we'll be able to report on this next year as well.
Absolutely. For environmental responsibility, these are many of the programs that, again, started with Imagine Kalamazoo, started with the master plan, and have become really robust with the new community sustainability plan that was adopted this year as well. And so we continue to look at ways of the infill housing that we're building is green and affordable, but also the housing that is rehabbed throughout the community. We have home audits that were performed as part of this work so that people understood what kind of repairs or things that they could do to their home, weatherization, et cetera, that could help their home be more efficient. Also, tons of foam recycling. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor had to step out for this. She's a huge champion of the styrofoam recycling and has really brought this incredible 10,000 pounds recycled this year is certainly incredible for our community. We continue to plant street trees. I don't know if all of you may have also received a postcard in the mail this year where you were able to scan a QR code or to mark on the postcard what kinds of trees you would like to see in the right-of-way near your home. And, you know, so again, that's just another layer I wanted to mention, Commissioner Cooney, on how our community is very engaged in even the trees that are planted in the community. So it's pretty exciting work.
Economic vitality is next, and again, that's growing businesses and stabilizing the local economy to benefit all. So some great pictures in this one. We do a variety of facade grants, white box grants to get buildings ready. This is an example of one in the East Side neighborhood that received a facelift as the business changed on the inside. So in total, there were 9 facade improvements funded this year for about $175,000 total. And then again, those were to improve the exterior of a business facade facing that street. Interior, there are 8 white box projects funded this year. Again, that's preparing spaces for new businesses, getting that kind of basic build out ready. And there were 35 technical assistance projects. And there's lots of different things that fall under technical assistance. But with about $165,000, we were able to support projects with legal, marketing, and other needs as new businesses grow or get off the ground. And here's another great picture. This is 1802 East Main Street that was rehabbed this past year. This was a project that was done in conjunction with the East Side Neighborhood Association, and the location where this building exists was noted in the master plan as their historic neighborhood node, their heart, their historic commercial center. And this is just one of a number of improvements that have happened in this location since the master plan and the zoning code was updated to make sure that we weren't creating additional barriers to see these buildings rehabbed.
and a connected city. So of course, a city that is networked for walking, biking, riding, and driving. Again, that's streets for all people. And so wanting to, one of the really cool exercises we did when we were doing Imagine Kalamazoo, and we were in each of the neighborhoods, was looking at the gaps in the sidewalk network and making sure that we were focusing on those connections that connected to business districts and schools. And so again, did another 4.4 miles of new or repaired sidewalk, and this is one of those ongoing projects. We started doing sidewalks in a time when we had not built a sidewalk, the city actually contributing to a sidewalk for a couple decades. So this was and has continued to be one of the best projects that we continue to highlight. So that sidewalk network, again, I'm just going to bring one more little piece of data. When we did our community survey that we got this January, it had noted, and I know we were coming off of COVID and all of that, but it had noted that 70% of the respondents walked and biked, and that they were really giving us lots of information about what sidewalks needed to be repaired and what condition those sidewalks are in. So people are definitely walking and bike riding a lot more because we're getting more feedback about the conditions of those sidewalks and of those bike lanes. And then that has, again, helped us to connect more bike lanes and have more lane miles of streets repaired as well. So Maple Street is one of the great streets that we did this year. We repaved the road. We added speed humps to help calm traffic and increase safety. We did some really awesome sidewalk and crosswalk improvements in critical places, and improved and informed all by community input, of course.
Safe community. This is creating safe environments for living, working, and playing. So a lot of projects fall into this. Again, safe community means a lot of things. And so this includes our lead line replacement program. And you know that Director Baker and his staff have been working very hard over the last few years to increase the number of lead lines that have been replaced. And so this past year we did 289. There were 38 homes remediated of lead paint. And that is from a program that started about 4 years ago and was renewed. And that is to remediate lead paint in homes that have children in them or children that are there very regularly. 10 traffic calming projects, and I know that Dennis in his presentation talked about many of these: speed humps, road diets, roundabouts. And we did 2 lead safety trainings, and these are trainings to help staff identify lead in homes. And in terms of a safety project related to transportation, again, won't talk too long about it since we just had our transportation presentation from the traffic engineer, but a lane reduction on Michigan Avenue to better facilitate the safe flow of traffic through downtown, reduce crashes, reduce speeds, make it safer for drivers, pedestrians, the cycle track, making it safer for cyclists, and patching and sealing the pavement. And this was done because when we took jurisdiction of Michigan Avenue, along with the other Michigan Department of Transportation streets back in 2019, we said that within a certain amount of time, we would get them up to an appropriate pavement condition. And so this project met that box, while we are also working to redesign Michigan Avenue for the larger two-way conversion project in a few years.
Shared prosperity is another one of our goals, where abundant opportunities for all people to prosper. This is where we work very hard on workforce development, training, and of course our affordable housing initiatives. This year we were able to put ARPA dollars and Foundation for Excellence dollars into supporting affordable housing unit development. We supported 3 low-income housing tax credit projects and small developer units throughout the city. We also built 10 new infill homes, including the duplex that you see the picture of and the cottage, and we built accessory dwelling units with these models as well. Again, continuing to add more units to the neighborhoods for affordability.
Youth development. a city with places and supports that help young people thrive. So these are the great programs that our Parks and Rec department runs every year, including their summer camp programs. So this is for youth and teens. It's Super Rec, Camp Kalamazoo, All Things Possible summer programs. And this past summer, there were 533 campers that participated in these programs. In partnership with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, the PAL Youth participation, over 1,000 participants in these sports leagues, which range from basketball and cheerleading, flag football. There were, for older kids, there were 13 Youth Action Council participants this year, and this is a program that's designed to bring youth and teens together to help guide youth activities. And so the activities that they helped to support this year were a karaoke game night, tropical themed pool event, and a youth entrepreneurial fair.
And I just have to say one more thing about that one, because that was direct input that we got during Imagine Kalamazoo from a forum that we held with KidNet. And to create that council and have that youth lead those programs and begin those programs for themselves. And I'm just tickled every time I see the cool things that they come up with every time. And I think, who has that in their master plan? We are so lucky. So I just always want to highlight that. In inviting public places, parks, art, culture, and vibrant streets. One of my favorites. We have worked so hard in all of our neighborhoods and particularly in downtown this year. As we took on downtown from the former leadership there, we worked really hard to understand where they were at and how we could pick those projects up. Downtown parking has been a huge effort. As you know, you all helped us take that parking back in-house. From the Downtown Development Authority, and we have since been implementing their blueprint parking plan and having a lot of success with that. So as part of that, we will be installing some parking on the mall, and we have 90 minutes free in the parking ramps right now, which is going over really, really well for the holiday season. And we've been putting up signage on all the streets that lead to those parking garages as well, so that everybody knows that that parking is free right now. The Parks and Rec master plan is in its draft phase right now, so certainly want everybody to get on our website and be sure to go take a look at that. This is the plan that really helps us get those Department of Natural Resources grants and important grants to keep our parks really looking amazing. We've also, we're going to show you this in the next picture, some super cool business signs in Vine that were created by some local artists to really highlight that district. And this was one of those things when Christina and I were looking at the zoning code many years ago and starting Imagine Kalamazoo, that we thought, wow, this is such a unique area. Why don't they have these projecting signs like you can have in downtown? We found out they're actually not legal. And we thought, ooh, that's a misstep. Let's make sure we make that right and make sure that these super cool signs are legal in all of the business nodes so that all of our really special neighborhood districts can have this type of signage, because it's just key. And then in downtown placemaking, this is a great photo of some of the lighting that we've been able to put up this year in Exchange Alley that we've been waiting for several years to do, and really get you that route from Bates to Exchange, over to Bronson Park, and really make these breadcrumbs exciting places for people to walk.
And here are some of the pictures of the signs that were created. Again, we've worked with local artists before in Kalamazoo. Think about the utility boxes and how they've been covered with photos. This was another opportunity, a collaboration between local artists and business owners to have a sign designed and then fabricated and installed. And there were 6 businesses throughout the Vine neighborhood that participated in this program.
So I think, we are all so grateful to the Foundation for Excellence for making this type of community development happen. The last couple of years, we've really been focusing on the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, but Imagine Kalamazoo kicked off with and has been sustained by the Foundation for Excellence for many years. And It was a real leap of faith for the community to give their input. When Christina and I were going out to all of them, they were like, yeah, you want us to tell us the vision, but y'all don't have any money. I was like, well, you know, we do pass a budget every year. We may not have a lot of money, but we do pass a budget. And then we were graced with the wonderful gift of the Foundation for Excellence. And just wanted to be able to say what an incredible space they have, and be sure to, if you want to break down how much we've spent, you know, in each of these neighborhoods and on these projects, go to the Foundation for Excellence website, and you can see how these past 6 years have been just an incredible investment into our city.
And that's Kalamazoo, FFE, all one word, .org.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Questions? Yep.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff? Commissioner Priddle.
Thank you for the update presentation. Sort of done a couple questions for you. One of the things we see on the agenda tonight is acceptance of a $300,000 grant from one of our local foundations, and it's about placemaking and whatnot. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about what that will do to enhance some of the work that you were speaking of here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we took some projects over from the Kalamazoo Downtown Partnership, one of those that had been started was designing some of the plazas and looking at, you know, the North Mall, the South Mall, the Rose Street Plaza that's near where the entry of Arcadia Creek is. And again, really focusing on these kind of breadcrumbs. We have really cool places, Bates Alley, the mall, the Arcadia Festival site, Bronson Park, but they're all just a little bit funky to get to. And so we worked with the University of Notre Dame to help create this public realm plan that said, focus on this core. And that's how we ended up with looking at the North Mall and the connection to Eleanor Street and the Arcadia Festival site. The South Mall, where the Seat Theater is, and it just kind of stops. And then the Rose Street Plaza, where the Arcadia Creek is. A lot of people don't know that the creek keeps going.
And that's particularly important given projects that we know that are coming down the path in the coming years, right? So in the West End, kind of the northwest quadrant of downtown, event center coming. On the northeast center of downtown, Arcadia Festival site, which is going to get some redesign. And that corridor in between along that creek is going to be that critical pathway to move pedestrians between all of our really unique, lovely places where activities are going to be happening, where we're supporting gatherings and other events. And so when you think about downtown Kalamazoo, if we jump 5 years ahead, and we have you know, our two-way street network, we have our heart at Burdick and Michigan, at the north end of the mall, the middle of Michigan Avenue, and you'll get kind of a little bit of a triangle between those areas. And these projects not only create a great sense of place, but creates more comfortable passageways between them.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what the $300,000 is for, is to you know, fix the pavement, get lighting, buy furniture. I have a whole other pot of money that we're working on, more public art, murals. So that $300,000 is matching some other funds that we also have.
Cool, that's great. I think it's a great segue into this presentation, like you were saying, Vice Mayor, because, you know, we're talking about our roadways, but also these public spaces really do a lot to create inviting spaces for people to walk and ride. And so the other question I was going to ask you about as well, just an observation. It seems like the places downtown and just throughout the community that have bike racks that are readily available or accessible, notice that they're full now. You know, like this summer, it was really neat to see at the kick pool. I mean, every single bike rack was filled on one of the peak days, and that was not the case many years before, so that was exciting to see. But more recently, I noticed in one of the coffee establishments really close by to City Hall here, they have very beautifully accessible parking or bike parking on that corner there. Almost universally, you will see bikes parked there. And so again, along that trend of like, if you build it, they will come. One of the things that went during our sessions with the city manager, they brought up, it was something I was hoping that we could try to find some way to fund is more grants and funding for businesses.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. We have heard, one, that the limited parking that is in downtown is being used, and that we need more. And we need more all over. And so what we have done, we have a partnership going with Gazelle and Pedal as our two downtown business representatives, Open Roads, the Kalamazoo Bike Club, Bike Friendly Kalamazoo, and Mode Shift, a little working group to help public services and planning to come up with a pilot project for this coming year. We have a bike rack, a really lovely bike rack that was donated by Landscape Forms to use, and we will be moving that bike rack around downtown between March, April, and November, and studying it in each location. How is it being used? When is it being used the most? What are people telling us about this location? We're going to have a signage and a way to check in and a QR code to help us track data. And all of those organizations and businesses that I mentioned are all going to be part of the marketing and the data tracking for it. And the purpose of this project is to help us understand where is the highest need. Where do we need to be putting future dollars to make permanent improvements? And so this pilot over these 6 months throughout downtown will help tell us that so we can make improvements that are more permanent in 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other questions? Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. It's great to hear all these wonderful things happening. I have a couple questions with regard to youth. We have a youth council. So does KidNet. How does that work together?
That's a good question. I think that's one of those we'll have to ask our Parks and Rec director how they interface together.
Yeah, because, I mean, they're both necessary.
It might be the same one.
Yeah. But we can get back to that.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on
information.
that, Commissioner Cooney. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. A couple other things. One is, we're not doing this, but it affects our kids. KRISA has been talking about I don't know what you call it, a trade center or training young people about skills that they could go into, like electricians and all those other things. Where is that? Do we know where that is yet? Because that could make a real difference for our people.
We can get those details too.
Okay, good. Good.
Yep.
Third thing is, I read in the paper that Discover Kalamazoo is saying we need a youth center here, which I think is a wonderful idea. And I just want to raise my voice and say, hey, yes, we definitely do. They're talking about 15 basketball courts, volleyball courts, probably, hopefully a swimming pool, which could benefit the whole community because people would come here, but would especially benefit our young people who need a place like this. And I think the Boys and Girls Club in Edison is going to make a huge difference. And I would encourage that being on the north side of Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much for that.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you for the presentation. So first of all, I think it's phenomenal that we're almost 90% complete with the master plan progress through 6 years. For the 2 remaining years, I guess which vision tracks is the majority of that work going to be focused on, that remaining 13%?
So I think that's a 2-part. So 3-part answer. So again, the ongoing work that we mentioned will all be a part of that, of what we do over the next 2 years. And so that is sidewalks, our housing work, what we kind of hinted at through this but didn't talk about, our pre-approved plans for ways to reduce the cost of new housing in the community. That will take up a large portion of that ongoing work. There are a few goals within Imagine Kalamazoo that we already know are just not going to get there. And fruit trees.
Yeah.
Fruit trees.
Sadly,
close.
fruit trees. Yeah.
Fruit trees, we heard from the community, we want fruit trees in public spaces,
Yeah.
particularly parks. And that is something we've talked about a lot, but have not quite been able to wrap our hands around what that looks like, how we manage, and how to manage all the negative externalities that may or may not happen when you have fruit trees. I'm using that as an example. There are a couple things in there that great ideas, and the community may still be interested in them, but they aren't able to be accomplished right now because they need more thought and they need more time. And so when we go out to the community with Imagine Kalamazoo 2035, that's like the first thing we kind of go out with. Here's the bucket that we didn't touch, right? Still a priority, not a priority? How do you want us to move these forward? And then in terms of the remaining tests that are left, I think they're spread across all of, they touch a lot of the different strategic vision goals. And I'm happy to provide, I don't have it in front of me, a list so you can see what's remaining. But we'll continue to plug away at all of those things as we wrap up work on 2025 and prep for 2035 later next year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to say there are not many communities where a city government will go out to neighborhoods to really build relationships and figure out and find out what the residents want versus us giving them the vision, right? You all have been so gracious in saying to community, we're here, we're listening. We may not always agree. However, we want to honor and respect your voice, and those things that we can do together, let's get it. And those things that we cannot at this time, let's continue to have that conversation. So I just want to say to your staff, kudos, because Kalamazoo is one of those communities where, oftentimes we get a lot of flack for what we're not doing, and we don't ever hear a lot about what we are doing and what we are doing well. So from my lips to your ears, congratulations, and I really appreciate the way that you all operate, even though sometimes you take a whole lot of ish. So we appreciate you and for staying the course. Something that Dr. Shirley Davis says all the time is, come back to the table. And so I just want to say to community, come back to the table, even when it's not working in the way that you think it should. There's always room at the table. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. I think that segues nicely into what I wanted to say was, I do hear a lot from folks who say, we didn't vote on this. We didn't vote on these two-way streets. Well, yes, you did. We voted during the Imagine Kalamazoo process. So can you touch a little bit and talk about next steps for here's how you vote on what Kalamazoo looks and feels like?
Sure. So we should all remember that a master plan is a 10-year document, right? A strategic vision. And so when we collect all of the community input and we put it into the document, it doesn't then get implemented in year one, right? We're in year 6 right now, talking about where we are and where we've been. And so time passes, and sometimes we don't remember all the conversations that were had or the approvals that were made and so forth, which is why one of the reasons why we come before you each year to talk about the plan and what was accomplished and why. Later in 2024, I think we're already there, so that's why I'm saying later in 2024. In 2024, second half, we're going to start that engagement for Imagine Kalamazoo 2035. And this is truly the opportunity to shape the community moving forward. We have spent the last 6 years almost proving that what we heard can be put into action, at least most things. And so we are going back out again for that next round to help create our strategic vision, which is our task list, to create the master plan, which is really focuses on land use and transportation actions. And we will take that information, building off of what we have now, to move the community forward. And we kind of went by something we called no comment left behind. And so when we collect a comment, very similar to what Commissioner Hoffman just said, some things we can initiate right away, some things are going to have challenges, and some things may or may not work for a variety of reasons. But we'll collect it all, and we'll have conversations on it all with you, and so you know where your comment went, and whether it belongs in the master plan the HUD consolidated plan, the Parks and Rec plan will help guide those
Sustainability
comments.
plan, yeah, we'll find a home for it. I think what's really important too to reflect on is that it's not like two-way streets became an idea in Imagine Kalamazoo 2025. It came from the 1977 master plan.
And had been talked about almost since October 10th,
Yeah.
1965, which was the day that they were converted
It
one way.
converted.
So-
And it was in the 1977 master plan. It was in the 1998 master plan. And then it was in the 2010 master plan. And we kept moving it forward. Actually, it was one of those things that you just kept kicking the can because it wasn't until we got the jurisdictional transfer that we could do the appropriate study as a network that showed it could work. When you just study those streets in isolation, no, of course it's not going to work. How would it? But when you study it as a network, it works. And so that's what was missing from 1968 until 2018.
And things from these long-range plans take time to accomplish.
Yeah, 40
And so
years.
we are slowly moving things forward with the, using our community vision, our staff capacity, and our
Yes.
budget.
Yeah, and that's what we'll continue to do with this too. Those things that didn't get completed, we go back out and we say, is it still relevant to you? Do you still need this done? Yes? Okay, well, we'll keep putting it in and we'll figure it out. It'll happen. We're brave like that, right? Yeah.
Thank you both for your care about Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any commissioners who wish to make final comments? Remembering that we will have commissioner comments at the end of our business meeting. Seeing none, we will be adjourned until our 7 o'clock meeting of the business. Thank you.